It's an honour to be in such great company. It's it's a bit weird, really, because such great speakers, and to hear a young speaker, because it is so dependent on the young to take this forward. It's really sad, really, that in all these years, I mean, at my age now, 2009, I became the first Trafford councillor who was a black woman, in fact, non-white woman for Trafford, to be fair. And I just find it incredible that it takes so long. When I think of my education at school and to hear what's been going on now, and to feel that things really haven't changed. All the way through my schooling, I was fortunate enough to be taught by one black teacher all the way through my education. And then it hurts me to find that my own children, all the way through their education, have never had a black teacher. And these are the things that are important, because at the end of the day, what Grenville, what Windrush, what COVID, what this with George Floyd, with police brutality showing, is that this is an unequal society. And all these things are bringing out those inequalities. They've always been there. There's always been people who've had negative thoughts about black people. There's always been the media likes to scapegoat people. And this is all being highlighted by COVID, by Brexit. It's really frustrating. And for me, when I was speaking to Nala yesterday, I'm saying how I found it really difficult this past week, because for the previous 2 weeks, going out with Black Lives Matter, seeing all the things that were coming from it, people asking questions, people wanting to find out more, people wanting to educate themselves, and it really made me feel good. But then in the last week, it feels like it's turned, and that people are trying to make it into something else, into things that are important, because, you know, having these overbearing statues looking down on us, because it is the elite who have looked down on us, is important. But when you look at the media, they're trying to make it sound like, you know, we haven't done due process. Those people in Bristol hadn't tried in legitimate ways to get rid of that statue in the first place. And people have been trying in all their own different ways, different activists, different local groups, and no one was listening, and they kept it up there. So in some ways, it's heartening to see it get dragged down. I was like, yes, I love it. But at the same time, you then get the leader of the Labour Party saying, they were wrong, they shouldn't have done it. And it hurts me, it guts me. So for me as a Labour councillor, I'm really struggling at the moment with a lot of things that are going on. And it's especially with me being in Old Trafford, because in the beginning of May, we had an incident where there was a man, Mr. Mombea Arara, or as he's known around here, Ziggy, was tasered. And it was all on social media. He was at a petrol station. You can hear his young child, his son, crying. You can see him in the video. And what got me about that was that, you know, all this, you know, he was stopped. For me, it looks like he was tasered 4 times. It looks like unnecessary force. No ifs, no buts about it to me, from what I could see in that video. And then what came out in the news afterwards is, yes, he'd been dangerous driving. He was 1 point, I don't know how it works in the alcohol. I don't think it's appropriate for anyone to be drinking and driving, especially not with a child in the car. But at the end of the day, were his actions, were the police actions necessary in order to deal with that situation? And the police seem to think it was. I've talked to somebody in the last couple of days who's been on taser training and who's also has some involvement with Greater Manchester Police. And the police think that there is no case to answer for, even though it's being investigated. And here we are, we're talking about Janet and her brother, that it's took 23 years and she's still not getting any justice. No apology, nothing. They're doing this investigation and they're telling us it's going to take 3 to 6 months. There's camcorders from the police who were there, there's the video of the actual thing, and there's also a video of when the rest of the police came And he was further tasered while still on the floor. So for me, I just find it's a really odd and strange times. And there's a bit of me that's filled with hope, because a lot of people are wanting to find out more, that Netflix have got a Black Lives Matter list of programs where people can educate themselves a little bit, that people are putting up books to read, they're finding out things that they didn't know, like, you know, compensation for the slave owners. We've only just stopped paying it in 2015. A lot of people never, myself included a couple of years ago, never even thought that you know, there was compensation for the slave owners. We knew there was nothing for the people who'd been enslaved. So, but at the same time, we've got to keep focused. We've got to keep together. This has got to be, is, as we've said before, it's about all of us against racism. It's about everyone recognizing it and people seeing it, that racism isn't just being nasty and being horrible and saying not nice things. It's the institutionalized way of it. It's that putting someone's job application to one side because you can't say their name. It's looking and thinking, oh, they're Jewish, they're Muslim, oh, they won't be able to work Fridays or Saturdays, so let's forget that. It's that, oh, they've got black skin, so how can they possibly be a counsellor? When I went to get my council badge as a counsellor, they didn't give me the right badge because they didn't think I was a counsellor. They thought I was there for some other problem, so I didn't get a full pass. And it's like those little things are building that in 2019 isn't fully accessible for wheelchair users. So all these things are all linked together. You know, inequalities, the disabled people not getting the funding that they need, them being scapegoated, the fact that the media has to pick on different groups and try and divide and separate us, and we need to keep coming together. So I'm really pleased that in Old Trafford, when we started taking the knee on a Wednesday at 6 o'clock, the first time it happened, me and Sue were just amazed by the number of people that turned up. We thought there'd be about half a dozen, maybe a dozen at the most, and there was over 60 people there, and it was really inspiring, and it was a mixture of young and old. I've been on the Black Lives Matter marches, and I'm impressed that there's so many young people there. I'm proud at the moment that my son in Birmingham's at a Black Lives Matter, but we've got to keep up the momentum, because we don't want this to be another situation where if things go pop and then it dies down again until another person ends up dying. Why do things have to be filmed to be believed? And even when it's filmed, they don't want to act on it, because this violence that some people use their power over others is shocking. And I've seen some shocking things on Facebook. And George Floyd, I just found it so, I couldn't watch the video. Just seeing the image of that police officer with his knee on his neck, with that look of no concern on his face, told me everything that I needed to know, that I didn't need to watch that. But for some people, they can watch that and laugh and still think it's justified. And this thing that they've been doing where they discredit people in order to make the police look justified in what they were doing. Now, the police are human like everyone else. Why can't they, like all of us, say, you know what, made a mistake, I shouldn't have stopped him. We've been told, we profile, I saw it was a black person in a decent car and I didn't like it, so I stopped him. It's very frustrating. I've got a 20-year-old son. Every time he leaves the house and he goes out, I'm frightened to death, like a lot of other people. And we shouldn't have to be feeling like this. I didn't feel when I was younger that as a grandmother, I would still have these same conversations about how to react when you're near groups of people, how to react when the police come, how to be, how to make yourself smaller so you're not seen. And it's not good. And I'm going to shut up now because I know there's lots of other people who need to speak and they don't need to hear me anymore. Thank you.
Akilah, thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's not easy, but you're right.